The benefits of our practice lead others to Nichiren Shoshu. Chapter Representatives Meeting, Great Writing Hall, Head Temple, Taisekaji, January 3rd, 1992. I sincerely appreciate the efforts of all Hokkekyo members who have traveled here on Tozan in your effort to repay your debt of gratitude to the Gohonzon. I have just learned all of your names. We have representatives here from each Hokkekyo chapter. I'd like to mention that in the past year, the number of chapters has increased by 129. This is the largest yearly increase in Nichiren Shoshu history. I believe that this kind of growth in the course of 1 year is mainly because the true Buddhism of Nichiren Shoshu manifests genuine prosperity and actual proof. Since last year, various issues and rumors concerning Nichiren Shoshu have been bounced back and forth in the media. I am certain that very few people are aware of the true nature of these issues. I believe that you, who are here and with the temple, understand by now, but I'd like to reiterate the cause of the Soka Gakkai's major misunderstanding about practice in true Buddhism. It goes without saying that the Daishonen's propagation lies in the three great secret laws, the object of worship, the high sanctuary, and the supreme invocation, or daimoku. The high sanctuary especially represents the core of the Daishonen's great compassion and the means to truly happy and peaceful societies. This can be achieved by leading people to enlightenment through the benefits of true Buddhism. This does not mean merely integrating yourself with the public or freely using the terms, quote, peace, unquote, and, quote, culture, unquote. Rather, it means steadily propagating the Daishonen's Buddhism and fostering true belief among many individuals. Through the inconspicuous benefits these people accumulate, we can further spread the teachings and further promote the common good. In this way, I truly believe that society would develop in a more benevolent way, in conjunction with mankind's attaining Buddhahood. Yet, society is still filled with people who neither understand nor practice true Buddhism. We, the protectors of true Buddhism, have the firm conviction that the Ikeda Soka Gakkai in particular is wrong in thinking that they have fulfilled Nichiren Daishonen's will in constructing the Shohando. They have placed a great deal of emphasis on this achievement of the second stage of Kosen Rufu, and in doing so have interpreted the Daishonen's teachings in their own fashion. So many problems surfaced from the 1965 until the late 1970s that Daisaku Ikeda became frustrated because of so many of the incidents during this time period. He decided to rebel, overtly and covertly deviated from the correct teachings and tried to control the temples. This led to the so-called, quote, 1977 incident, unquote. Since the Soka Gakkai was only beginning its distortions of the teachings, it was not able to suppress everything its leaders discussed and were able to see some of their documents. They temporarily returned to Nichiren Shoshu's teachings when we pointed out their wrongdoings. But if they really had repented, they should have begun with the basics and followed the teachings of the priesthood. However, they again began to think that they were the Daishonen's true followers and that they alone were fulfilling this legacy. Specifically, they thought that the high sanctuary of true Buddhism had become a reality when the Shohando was completed. They thought that they would begin the next stage of Kosen Rufu by gradually using whichever of the Daishonen's teachings they wished, in whatever way they wished. In this way, they gradually deepened the rift between themselves and the priesthood. This attitude became apparent over the last 5 or 6 years. I had been dealing with the Soka Gakkai, thinking of some way to redirect them through the basic means of Buddhism. As the Daishonen mentioned, right and wrong are difficult to comprehend. Without great wisdom, it is very difficult to differentiate correctly between their doctrines and the teachings which Nichiren propagates. Gosho, page 906. However, every one of you, I hope, grasps a clear understanding of this. By no means did the situation we now face begin with a struggle for power or some scandal, as has been reported. Rather, the priesthood is trying to retain the very basics of the Daishonen's Buddhism. When the Soka Gakkai leadership felt that we would not comply with Ikeda's thinking, they began to consider what they would do with the priesthood. And that is the reason why specific allegations against us began to circulate since about July 1990. The details have already been written about in the special issues of the Dai Nichiren. Please read them so that you can gain a greater understanding of what has happened. Obviously, I had been praying for the unity of priesthood and lay believers and preserve peace among us. But when erroneous and defamatory statements were made about us and an anti-priesthood campaign was launched, I thought that we must clearly state our position and investigate. That is why we submitted a series of questions regarding Mr. Ikeda's November 16, 1990 speech criticizing the high priest and the priesthood in general. We did not receive any response. Rather, they sent us a list of 9 inflammatory questions concerning the communication conference held in July 1990, as if the priesthood were to blame for the entire situation. Because of this, I thought that we must stand forth and make our position very clear. There are other incidents I can bring up, but most important is that the priesthood and lay members unite and correctly protect and propagate true Buddhism. However, the Soka Gakkai does not seem to have this in mind because since January 1991, they have continued to circulate fabrications and groundless charges against us. The priests and the genuine believers have united and are correctly propagating the Daishonen's Buddhism, regardless of the libelous stories being circulated. But you should be aware that this year, those who are frustrated because the priesthood has not succumbed might add persecution to the slanders already committed against us. The 20-line verse portion of the, quote, fortitude, unquote, kanji 13th chapter of the Lotus Sutra describes the first type of behavior manifested by arrogant persons. There will be many ignorant people who will curse, slander, and speak ill of us, and will attack us with swords and staves. Kaiketsu, page 375. The first part, quote, cursing, slandering, and speaking ill of us, unquote, describes actions that the opponents have already been practicing. This passage also describes the acts of attacking us with swords and staves. While the nation of Japan is one of the foremost countries worldwide that upholds law and the judicial system, we must brace ourselves this year against those who oppose the truth and justice, and who will engage in various evil schemes based on their heretical beliefs. However, we will not be afraid, nor will we retreat even one step when faced with the most adverse circumstances. Protecting the Daishonen's Buddhism at the risk of your life is the way to Buddhahood in the latter day of the law. As a result, true Kosen Rufu is occurring spontaneously in this 701st anniversary of the head temple's founding. Decades ago, lay believers, led by Makaguchi and later by Mr. Toda, laid the foundation for the practice for Kosen Rufu. Theirs was a respectful practice indeed. However, an organization will generally degenerate if greed and interpretations of the teachings which stray from the fundamentals take root. If this happens, Buddhism's true meaning and intent cannot be conveyed and propagation does not proceed. Therefore, for the sake of Kosen Rufu, whatever is wrong must be corrected. The fact that priests and lay believers are truly united, Itai Doshin, and are correctly propagating the true law has brought about a surge in the Hokkekyo's growth over the past year. We can see clearly its solidarity and development. The chapter, Ko, is the organization through which you should spread true Buddhism. Since each one of you represents a chapter, I'd like to request that each of you pay close attention to what is happening during this particular year. Unlike other religions, the Daishonen's law contains the truth of the universe and of how a life should be lived. So those who accept the teachings and continue to practice attain true happiness. This is the great benefit of Buddhahood. Undoubtedly, all of you possess the principle of propagation to the 50th person, Goju Tenden. This means that you can convey the true law to many people as a result of the fulfillment you gain through your practice. The Daishonin stated in his Gosho, quote, the three great secret laws, unquote. Now, in the period of the latter day of the law, the Daimoku that I, Nichiren, chant is different from that of previous eras. It is the Nam-myoho Renge Kyo that encompasses practice for oneself and practice for others, Jigyo Keita. Gosho, page 1594. Let's spread the Daishonin's Buddhism and repel persecution and slander through our strong faith. I would like to close today by saying that I pray for your determination to advance and for your good health.